Okay, you know what? Let's skip the break. Let me just remind you what we know so far. So far, we've got breaking news here at the SABC News channel. The state is not liable for the legal costs incurred by the former president Jacob Zuma. The High Court in Pretoria handing down a unanimous decision. And just to remind you, the High Court, while ruling that the funding of former President Jacob Zuma's corruption defense will not be, the state won't pay any of that. And this was brought about by the Democratic Alliance as well as the EFFs. And they were in a legal bid to challenge this decision to allow the state to continue the legal costs. And we're told that, how would this affect the former president now in terms of his legal challenges in the Pietermaritzburg High Court? He's facing more than 16 charges related to corruption and racketeering, and this relates to more than 780 questionable payments in connection with the controversial arms deal. Okay, let's try to touch base now with our reporter, Sipho Stierman, who's at court. A very good morning to you, Sipho. Break it down for us.
Well, good morning to you, and we have breaking news here from the Pretoria High Court, where the Deputy Judge President Aubrey Dwaba just handed the judgment in this matter, and is a 45-page long judgment, and the three key findings, of course, the order is that the state is not liable to pay the costs for President Zuma for corruption cases that he incurred in his personal capacity. And of course, then the court went on to say, rule that the decision or the agreement between the presidency that under President Thabo Mbeki back in 2006, that it would pay the legal costs for President Zuma, of course, on the condition that if he's proven to be guilty, he would pay back. It says that agreement is invalid. And also now it has also instructed, that is the state attorney, to estimate the exact amount of legal fees that have been paid for the president, former President Zuma, thus far. And then from then onwards, then it has been the state attorney has been instructed to then recoup those funds. So certainly, it's quite a beating for the former president here, and opposition parties seem to have won this round. The DA is represented here by its leader, that is Mmusi Maimane, speaking with other media, but we hope to get him shortly. But yes, the breaking news is that the state is said to not be liable for paying President Zuma's costs on matters that are related to his corruption matters or cases that that he incurred in his personal capacity, and that agreement that is in place, which has led to the funding of his legal fees, has been declared invalid, and that the state attorney must determine the exact cost and recoup the funds that have been paid so far. Plain.
Super, I know you're going to get some more reaction, but what was the initial reaction when this judgment was being handed down? What did you witness there at court with regards to the opposition parties that actually brought forward these applications?
Well, of course, opposition parties, especially the DA, which is represented here by its leader, Mmusi Maimane, is quite, excited, and I think they're delighted. This is something they've been calling for, saying that the country cannot continue paying the legal fees for the president for legal matters that he faces in his personal capacity. Of course, these are not matters that, he faced in execution of his duties. I remember this case obviously came through. This case came through when he was still MSc in KZN. So certainly it's not a matter that came about when he was president. But of course, when he was president, we know that the president and former President Zuma frustrated all efforts to have his day in court. Of course, we know the spy tapes saga has been ongoing for almost 10 years. But eventually, as much as he tried to delay these matters, he now has his day in court, and the matter is back in court in KwaZulu-Natal, and we are trying to get the DA at this point in time to respond and react to this. Thank you very much, sir. It's quite a sweeping victory for yourselves as opposition parties. Your reaction to this?
It's a sweeping judgment for the people of South Africa. The DA is fighting that no taxpayer must finance criminal litigation. It's consistent with the law. It's ultimately the deal that Mr. Mbeki, Mr. Ramaphosa entered in with Mr. Zuma to pay for his legal fees. And now we've come to a point where we are saying we are cutting off the ATM. If anyone wants to litigate for corruption, they must do so themselves. It goes to those who are involved in state capture. It goes to all of those who have been looting the people's money and now they want the people to pay. Today is a victory for the people of South Africa.
And yes, on that point, it sets quite a precedent because, of course, now we know that even other government officials that are facing the corruption charges may have difficulty in terms of now getting state funding.
Absolutely. And I think, to me, in the system of corruption that government has set up, which is to say loot and then we'll pay for your legal fees, today we've stopped that. It is a precedent that is now being set to say South Africans can no longer be the ATM for criminals. Let those who want to steal from the people of South Africa face criminal prosecution, and any litigation, they must fund it themselves. What's also more important about this judgment is that Mr. Zuma now owes the South Africans tens of millions of rands. The judgment goes further to say, let us set up a process upon which he can pay back the money. And therefore, it's a system of ANC is coming now to an end, and I think I welcome the judgment. I celebrate the people of South Africa. The ATM has been cut.
And of course, you're right, the judgment did the third point. I think that the state attorney must determine the exact amount. It seems that it could be more than the 15 million that we've been told or that we've heard so far.
People like Michael Harley, who were agencies of Mr. Zuma, now have to account to the people of South Africa. And when we took this matter, I even asked Mr. Ramaphosa, I said to him, President Ramaphosa, please can you give me the contract that you agreed with to pay Mr. Zuma's fees? That contract is now being set aside. And therefore now is an opportune time for us to get the full figures of the case that Mr. Zuma has been litigating and ultimately get him to pay back the money to the people of South Africa and stop wasting people's money. Let those who have been found to be corrupt and criminal face the full might of the law, and I would hope that they will soon find themselves behind bars.
I suppose, DA has been on this spy tapes matter for quite some time. I'm sure, you must be feeling, quite satisfied at this point in time.
Yeah, we feel very vindicated. You see, the principle is not Mr. Zuma only. It's the rule of law. Everybody is equal before the law. If any citizen commits the same crime, that citizen does not have money paid for by government. Why is it so special about Mr. Zuma? Why is it so special about Mr. Moyane? And I can go through the list. Let all of them together litigate on their own rights. There are a few cabinet ministers who are in the state of capture report. I hope they've studied this judgment. It's a victory for the people of South Africa. We fought it on behalf of South Africans, and we will continue to do so to make sure their money is not wasted protecting criminals.
All right, thank you very much, DA leader Mmusi Maimane. Just reacting to that judgment, of course, the president. The ruling, of course, that the state is not liable to pay former President Zuma's legal fees. Secondly, the agreement between President Zuma and the presidency under Thabo Mbeki has been declared invalid. And the third point is that the state attorney needs to determine the exact cost of the fees they've paid so far. And following that, they must then move to recoup those funds. Plain.
Sipho, thank you very much indeed for your time. Great reporting there. Indeed, a benchmark ruling there. If you just join us, this is the breaking news on the agenda. The state is not liable for the legal costs incurred by the former president, Jacob Zuma. We'll have more news after this.